Thank you, and thank you for being here, both of you. You have pointed out that the industry, the makers of some of the fire retardants, have abandoned an organization they created called Citizens for Fire Safety, and have indicated that they would shift their lobbying and advocacy efforts to the American Chemistry Council, which is you guys. And I think they specifically have said that they would look to the American Chemistry Council to discuss scientific nature of the issue, and you've discussed a little bit of it, and you have done that today to a certain extent. So let me throw out to you two things. I appreciate the fact that you don't want to offer an opinion on the Chicago Tribune series, but let me quote two things from that series and ask you for your scientific view of these statements, because they go directly to the testimony that you've given. I believe the person that's being quoted in both of these is Dr. Bobrowskis, who is a PhD in fire protection engineering. So let me quote those comments from the Chicago Tribune. There's two of them. First, small amounts of flame retardants in typical home furnishings offer little to no fire protection. Industry has used this study in ways that are improper and untruthful. Second quote. Many couches, love seats, and chairs sold nationwide contain flame retardants to comply with the California flammability rule. But studies by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission have concluded that this standard provides no meaningful protection from deadly fires. The standard requires that raw foam withstand a candle-like flame for 12 seconds. But, Bobrowskis said, upholstered furniture is covered with fabric, and if the cover ignites, the flames from the fabric quickly grow larger than that of a candle and overwhelm even flame-retardant foam. So what are the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission and the nation's first guy to get a doctorate in fire protection engineering missing?
Well, I can answer the Dr. Bobrowskis question first. We've actually put, and I referred to the FAQ that we put together, we've put a brief description of the study that he was a part of that I think is at issue in his comments. And I would encourage you to look at that study as we've described in our website, because I think the data stands on its own. I can't speak for how it was portrayed in the past, but what I can say is that it does demonstrate that flame retardants do in fact work. And I think he would have a hard time denying that fact. Now, I think his issue...
Well, he is denying it. Well, and he's rather vigorously asserting that the portrayal of that study that he was involved in, right, given by the industry, is completely erroneous. That's the first quote. That's what he's saying is improper and untruthful.
Well, I can clarify a little bit. I think what he's speaking to is that I think he thinks that the industry has used the study to support TB117. And I think what we've conveyed in our piece is that the study supports the fact that flame retardants work, and that's the difference.
Well, the studies that you're referring to then are studies done by whom?
No, I'm referring to his own study.
Okay, but you also referred earlier to other studies that you believe support this contention.
Included in some of the other material that we provide on the webpage. We refer to a study, for example, that the National Institute of Standards and Technology did on soundproofing material that was used in the Rhode Island fire. And that study looked at basically took a sample of the foam that was in the nightclub and compared that to sample of soundproofing material that met code. And essentially that meant that it contained flame retardants. And that study demonstrated a very significant difference in the behavior of those two substances when put to flame, similar to the sparks that occurred with the pyrotechnics from that event.
Well, that's a rather narrowly focused study that doesn't apply to most of what we're talking about here today.
We also have an upholstered furniture flammability study from the UK that is quite compelling, that it's a different standard. It's actually a more stringent standard than the standard provided by California. And I would refer that to you.
Who did that study?
I'm sorry?
Who did that study?
The UK government.
If I could just add, Assemblyman, one of the things that we will be doing, and obviously Jackson will be heading that effort, is as we undertake this assignment, we will be looking at all the information that is out there. Obviously, we've started some of that already, and that is what you will find on the website. But if you compare what some of our other panels have done in terms of research, technical expertise, et cetera, that have been around for many, many years, that's where we hope to get this particular panel to as well. Remember, we've only been doing this since Friday of last week, and we've got a lot of catching up to do. But as we enlarge the database, so to speak, all that information will be made public.
Okay, let's shift a little bit to what we're really trying to focus on here, which is not just whether flame retardants work, but the health impact of flame retardants. There are scientific studies showing that babies born in the United States have more of those chemicals in their systems than children in other countries around the world. Why do you think that is?
Well, at this point, Assemblyman, I wouldn't be able to answer that because I haven't had an opportunity to look at that issue in detail. Again, to repeat, I guess what Steve had indicated, we've really just had a short window of time to be able to prepare, but I'd like to give you a more full answer.
Okay,
so we do have the question, and obviously we will go back and see how best we can answer it.
Okay, let me ask a more generic question then about how decisions are made regarding the use of chemicals. And of course, if you can directly reference flame retardants, that would be great. But generally speaking, when a company has to make a decision about the use of flame retardants or other chemicals in a product, what's the most important factor that is taken into consideration? Is it effectiveness? Is it cost? Is it health impact? What are the priorities?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I can give a full answer to that either, but I mean, I think it's going to depend on the product. And
well, again, it doesn't matter if the product is a flame retardant or an automobile or any product. There are some general factors that go into it. The first is efficacy. Does the product work? The second is safety. Is the product safe? And the third is cost, because you could have the most effective product, the safest product, but if you can't sell it, you don't have a product. So it's my understanding, having spoken to many CEOs and other senior managers, those tend to be the three: efficacy, safety, and cost. And they have to balance each other. One isn't more important than the other necessarily, but they've got to the three have to balance each other. There's kind of been a fourth subsidiary issue, which, and again, I've talked about this here many times, which is recycling. So for certain products, recycling has become almost a sub-issue of those three. But in answer to your question, efficacy, safety, cost.
Okay. Given the fact that many people are suggesting, and I'm sure we're going to hear testimony on this here today, and I won't cite all. Well, let me read you one quote from congressional testimony given by the EPA just in July of this year. In fact, it was given by James Jones, Acting Assistant Administrator, Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, at a congressional hearing on July 24th of this year. And I just want to read you, this goes to the health aspect, health impact. EPA is concerned that PBDEs, what we're talking about here, are persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic to both humans and the environment. A critical endpoint of concern for human health is neurobehavioral effects during development, which makes them a concern for children's health. Various PBDEs have also been studied for ecotoxicity in mammals, birds, fish, and invertebrates. In some cases, current levels of exposure for wildlife may be at or near adverse effect levels. So, the EPA is expressing concern that this stuff is toxic to humans and that, in particular, it's a concern for children's health. That's his words. There is much other medical and scientific research indicating the same thing. Walmart has recently announced that they're going to stop selling products that contain PBDEs, and Graco Industries, which makes an awful lot of children's products, they have a big share of the market, has announced that they are also going to phase out the use of those products, indicating, and others have indicated also, that there are safe alternatives to these flame retardant chemicals. Why then should we even consider using those chemicals that have been declared by the EPA, the scientific community, the medical community, as being problematic for human beings, and especially for children, when there are non-toxic, safe alternatives that are out there and being used?
Well, I can just, as a point of clarification, the PBDEs, there are 3 that have in the past been commercially available. Penta and Octa, were phased out in 2004, so they're no longer on the market, and they've been out of the market for some time. DECA BDE, the 3 major manufacturers of the 3rd commercially available PBDE, announced a phase out of DECA that commences actually at the end of this year for all commercially available uses, and then there's an extra year built in for special uses such as aircraft and the military.
Although those products will continue to be out there for a long time to come.
That's true.
Which leaves still some products that are on the market. I'm not quite sure that I heard an answer to my question there.